Well, today I am taking a look at the chart of Donald Trump. He's been in the news quite a bit lately. There's been a list of indictments from different states, and there was even the infamous mugshot where he has a very angry look on his face, very determined look. And so I was really curious to see what kind of astrology update we could get on Donald Trump just to see what is going on with this. You have various camps. You have some people that are not really taking this serious, and then you have other people that are taking this to, that they believe he's going to end up in prison or incarcerated in some way. So we're going to take a look at this. My intention is not to be political. I'm actually just going to try to look at this as objectively as I can and really give an analysis of what kind of astrological energies are in the chart. If you're new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're interested in a personal private reading, I do have a discount this month, 40% off if you use codename Thor at checkout. Check for details down below. So thank you all for watching. And also, thank you for those of you that have been purchasing readings. It really helps my channel and what I do. So it's much appreciated. So let's take a look at Donald Trump's chart. First off, I do want to give the disclaimer that this is for entertainment purposes only. All these statements about Donald Trump are allegedly and speculative. So let's take a look at Donald Trump's chart. Now, there are two different charts for Donald Trump, but I do feel like this chart's the most accurate. The other time that they have for Trump, they have him as a Cancer ascendant, but this one, I've analyzed it. Having him as a Leo ascendant does seem to be accurate. And the birth time of 1054 is the one that is actually on the birth certificate. So we are going with that one in this video, but I have seen others use another birth time that leads to the sign of Cancer being the ascendant sign. So let's clean that up. So what I want to do in Vedic astrology, what we typically look at as far as planetary periods. Now, this isn't going to be an overall chart analysis of Donald Trump. We're really kind of getting down to what's going on in Donald Trump's chart. If you check some of my previous videos, you can find more videos on Trump. In Vedic astrology, we use something called the Vimshatari Dasha system, which is a way of looking at various karma timelines you essentially have. So during your life, from the moment you're born, you're essentially on a timeline. And during different periods of your life, this is just a representation of a timeline. You may be in a sun period, you may be in a Venus period, you may be in a Ketu period. So you're in just different planetary timelines, essentially. That's called the Mahadashas. And the Vimshatari Dasha system is what we use in the form of Vedic astrology that I practice, which is based on the writings of Sage Parashara. So let's clean that up. And essentially, when you're in a certain planetary period, the planet is highlighted. And that planet's energy, the archetypal energies that it represents, is really dominating your life at that point. So, what I was really interested in with Donald Trump's chart is, first of all, he's in the Jupiter Mahadasha. So, Jupiter Mahadasha, he started that back in November of 2016, which is kind of interesting. Remember what happened around that time. And then he's going to be ending the Jupiter Mahadasha when it's November of 2032. Remember, this is the large period that we're talking about. This is called the Mahadasha. So we do want to look at what is Jupiter representing in the chart in a general way. The large period, which is the Mahadasha, is always going to be, a more generalized influence. So it's kind of like a background energy. For a Leo ascendant like Donald Trump, Jupiter can be kind of a harsh planet in some ways. It's a planet of transformation because it rules the eighth house. So, a lot of difficulty can come through Jupiter. Okay. And then if we look at the moon chart over here, it's the second and fifth house. Not as bad from the moon chart, but in the D1 chart, the eighth lord, it can be a very tricky planet. And, eighth house is essentially dealing with things like bankruptcies, scandals, and, of course, there was the whole scandal about what happened in the most recent election. We won't go into that too much, but, there was a lot of drama with that. And now there's a lot of drama with these indictments. One thing to notice is, the eighth lord can represent like a fall from grace in a lot of ways as well. So it can represent downfalls even. Now let's talk about the Bhukti. So he's in the Jupiter Mahadasha. So that's the general energy, the energy of transformation. Eighth house again could be downfalls and things like that. And specifically at the moment, he's in a Mercury Bhukti, but I'm not really going to focus on that. He is in a Mercury Bhukti at the moment. Okay. What I really want to focus on is we're not going to look at the Mercury Bhukti. He's going to be entering a new planetary period, Ketu, and that is starting October 22nd, 2023. So that's in a little over a month, he's going to be entering Ketu Bhukti. Let's clean up the chart. We're going to talk about Ketu Bhukti. What does this mean for Donald Trump? Okay. So Ketu in the chart, the archetypal energy and the symbol for it's right over here. This is Ketu. And let me give you the date. So he starts Ketu on October 22nd next month. And he's going to be in that Ketu period till, let's see, September 27th of 2024. So it's a little less than a year. It's about a year-long period that he's going to be in this Ketu period. So let's talk about what Ketu represents, because this is the energy I feel is really going to be influencing Donald Trump throughout the next year. And I don't know if I necessarily heard, I think he said he's trying to run for president right now. And some people think that, it might not work out. When you're in a Ketu period, Ketu represents the energy of, it represents things falling apart. It can represent being cut off, falling apart, being cut off. It can be loneliness, desolation. Ketu primarily, when you're in a Bhukti or a Mahadasha of Ketu, it's primarily a very spiritualizing type of energy. And it tends to represent losses in a general way. So, we talk about the houses representing losses, like the sixth house, the eighth house, and the 12th house. Well, Ketu, just as an archetypal energy, represents losses. Now, what is Ketu's function in our charts? Okay. Ketu's function in the chart is to eliminate karmic situations or karmic baggage from past lives that are no longer necessary for the incarnation. Okay, so this is quite interesting. So we got to realize that in Trump's chart, he's entering this period where there's this various karmas that are being, flushed down the proverbial drain. And a lot of times the things that are flushed down the drain, the karmic drain, can be things like beliefs, ideas, relationships, situations. During Ketu periods, usually people have something they lose, either a relationship, either, REM song, Losing Their Religion, or, various things, losing their job. It usually signifies some kind of loss. I rarely see, there are some cases like where somebody's uber successful in a Ketu period. Usually it's a time of like disorientation. You're confused. You're just kind of like floating through these past life experiences that are being dealt with. Now, the thing to remember is in Trump's chart, Ketu is being strongly influenced by the Lord of Scorpio, which is of Mars, and Ketu is associated with Moon, which is quite interesting. Now, what I see happening, we're just going to talk about the archetypal energies here. I have seen Ketu, I have seen cases where Ketu represents some sort of incarceration. Okay. I have seen it. I've studied charts of people that like famous serial killers that ended up in prison, and there was something like Ketu and the 12th Lord involved. Okay. So I have seen examples of that. Does that mean that for every case this is going to happen? No, not at all. This is not like there's not always an exactness about this. It could be, it could be being disinherited, maybe you're not running for president anymore. So, when we make these extreme interpretations, it's not necessarily so. But you do notice that K2, it is with the moon. So first of all, I can say that this upcoming period in general, and moon is debilitated in Scorpio, by the way, this period is a feeling of loss. There's a feeling of loss of homeland. I mean, remember, the fourth house can represent your country. Isn't it interesting that I've made other predictions about what's going on in President Biden's chart and what's going on in the USA chart in October? It seems kind of interesting that there's all this stuff happening in October of 2023. So it feels like there's some sort of losses. It could be losses in the homeland, okay? A disconnection from homeland. And or a disconnection from even patriotism. That's kind of interesting. So, with K2 being in the fourth house, it could show somebody that was very patriotic in past lives. But in this lifetime, it's not necessarily a genuine patriotism. And I know people don't get mad at what I'm saying. I'm trying to interpret the chart. Because Rahu's with Sun in this chart, it's kind of more about self-elevation and leadership. Whereas, K2 in the fourth house would be more of a lack of focus on people in general, the homeland. So it could actually represent somewhat of a shadow feeling of patriotism with K2 being there, because there's more of a focus on the self. And I bet you not a lot of people are going to be surprised about that one, right? So anyways, it definitely could indicate losses. And in a Leo, for a Leo ascendant, moon does represent the 12th lord. I mean, it is the 12th lord, okay? Like I said, I've seen charts where, K2 and the 12th lord together can end up being an arrest, or could end up being something like that. It could even be, and I'm going to give you the other interpretation of this. It could even be like, kind of just like disappearing for a while, going into obscurity type of thing. So that's why I have a really hard time believing that there's going to be this really like successful campaign over the next year, because he's entering this K2 period. And if you look, it goes till, remember, September of 2024. Well, the election that's about to happen, the next one is going to be in November of 2024. So to me, it doesn't seem like a very successful type of energy when you got it doesn't seem like a successful energy when you have this idea of what I'm going to say is the K2 energy is really cutting off all of the enthusiasm throughout that year of campaigning. So that's where I'm kind of like thinking, like, I don't feel like this is a strong campaign energy if he's trying to campaign. The K2 energy could even represent being disqualified for some reason. So maybe they'll find a reason and they'll find something where he gets disqualified, or something along those lines. So the extreme end of it would be like, getting arrested or going to prison or something. But the lower level of it would be like kind of going into obscurity, being disqualified. That's where I tend to lean with his predictions. But just in my mind, K2, it just never feels like, don't get me wrong, he's going to get a lot of notoriety, but it's kind of like a negative publicity, because I know we're looking at Mars as the Lord here in this situation, but there's almost like this negative publicity about everything that's going on. And he hasn't been getting a lot of positive publicity. So I feel like the energies are more against this happening. So that's my analysis of Donald Trump. We could be seeing some interesting situations arise in the month of October. Remember, we have the Saudi Sati in the USA chart, where transiting Saturn is going over the natal moon in the USA chart. And then we have just all types of strange events happening with President Biden's chart. So it does seem like this fall, and I keep making these predictions and beating the drum here, I feel like this fall is going to be intense. October, November, we're in some really intense energies. And I feel like it's focused in the homeland, if you're American, United States. And of course, this could be influencing the world, since the world, financial system is essentially tied in to the USA and so forth. So let me know what you all think down below in the comments. I always appreciate getting your comments, getting your feedback. Again, if you're interested in your own personal private reading, kind of learning about what kind of planetary period you're in, check down below for details. And thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.